Breakdown. I am your host, Dujunnea Bland, and I am joined by my co-host, Carita Parks. Carita, how are you doing?
Afternoon. I cannot complain. How are you?
Oh man, doing good. It's hot, super hot. Heat advisory again, 109. It was like 120 on Saturday or Sunday, and I think it's supposed to be another 100 and plus degree day tomorrow. So it's pretty rough, but we're doing as best we can.
Oh my goodness. I was going to say it's hot here too, but it's not that hot. So I'll leave that alone on my end.
It's ridiculous. But we finally had some live sports. NASCAR's been going for a couple weeks. NHRA comes back, so we have some quarter mile racing for those people who like drag racing. And the NBA is back in business. What do you think of that?
I think it's great. It's funny because now it's back with a vengeance because the NBA and the WNBA are overlapping, but they're starting at the same time. And during a regular season, WNBA would have started first. So it's definitely back with a vengeance, but it's great to have some sports going on. All 22 teams are down in Orlando. We saw them posting their food pictures. Some are happy with it, some are not. We've seen practice. We've seen them practicing specifically with the Wizards. They went down last Tuesday. News that came out is Bradley Beal was not making the trip, which wasn't a complete surprise, but they really held that to their chest until the day that they traveled. He has a shoulder injury, so he's not going down. They're also without Davis Bertans, and we found out that Thomas Bryant and Gary Payton III both tested positive for coronavirus, so they stay behind. I'm not aware if they're joining the team or not, but there's definitely a lot of news coming out. Russell Westbrook, I don't think he made it either, but he tested positive as well. He's not down. So far, for those people who are down there, the players, they seem to be in good spirits. No one at the campus has tested positive for coronavirus so far, so that is good.
That is a good sign. And we have to think that this is going to be the way we're going to operate if you're going to have sports, that these cases are going to come up. It's just a matter of catching them and not allowing them to spread to other teammates because what happens is you end up losing teams, and this could really mess up the schedule. You know, thinking about the schedule and thinking about that, there are going to be cases. If a team has too many cases to where it cannot even put a valid team out on the floor, what's the protocol there? Can the NBA be stringent on their schedule? Because I know they want to have a playoff time, a week where they want to be in the playoffs. Then they want to have a time where they want the season to be concluded. Can you have those kind of hard, stringent, rules or whatever you want to call them because of this whole COVID?
That's a good question. I think going into it, from what I recall, they are still going to move forward. Like if people test positive and they can't play, then, they don't have any. It's just like you put the next players on the floor. But I think that as they move forward, they may start to see that they're going to have to back off of some of those rules because this is a new virus. So what you think and what you want to happen may not be able to happen. I mean, you really have to ask yourself, if the Lakers are without LeBron or some of their key players because someone tests positive, is that really fair? The Lakers and LeBron are going to throw a fit if that's the case and if they have a shell of a team out there. So, I think that as this moves forward, there's going to have to really be some considerations if it turns out that coronavirus starts to be an issue. There's going to have to be some flexibility with those rules as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And let's be real here. I think they are one of the entities that can do the greatest job, including the WNBA, which we'll get into next, with these places where they have a bubble, and they can kind of control who's coming in, who's going out, control their activities, and at least they can test them, and they know where they've been. So it kind of gives them a better chance, so to speak, to not have these breakouts where the season would stop. But we can't sit here and think that it's impossible because there's so many variables when it comes to this whole thing.
Well, yeah, one thing that's interesting is one of my colleagues was telling me that the Disney employees actually go home every day. So I don't know how that will potentially, or if it could factor into anything, because, they're leaving. We don't know what they do from maybe 12 hours that they're not on the campus. So if that's the case, I could see that potentially being a concern in the future, because maybe the guys inside the bubble are doing what they're supposed to do, but that doesn't mean the staff is doing what they're supposed to do. So we'll see if that comes into play at all during this process.
Now, when you spoke to a few Wizards players before they left, I know you were in several Zoom conference calls. Did they express their concerns about this virus and about going to this bubble?
I think some have more concerns than others. I mean, I think there's a general concern in the sense that this is very unknown, like going down there. It was just unknown. We don't really know what we're getting into. But Coach Brooks, he kind of mentioned how they're fortunate to be able to play basketball, to be one of the teams going down there. So he said he's been encouraging the guys to be positive. So the funny thing is, a lot of the guys going down there are the younger players, and you don't really see as much concern about it with them. I think the guys like Jan Mahimi, who have families and are leaving their families behind for this extended period of time, are a little bit more concerned about it. But most of them feel like the NBA has done what they can to help with their safety, their health and safety. So they're going down there with a positive attitude. I've had a chance to hear from them since they've been down there, and they said that so far everything's good. They've been having their mask on. They've been practicing. So right now it looks like it's running fairly smoothly. It's just a matter of it just being a completely different environment scenario than they're used to.
Right. There's definitely some adjustments to that. So it's even a little different just being on a college campus, because there is that infection thing and that infection rate that they're trying to control. So yeah, I could see that as well. These scrimmage games start July 22nd through the 28th. And after that, I believe it's July 30th is when they start the season. So it's going to be interesting. You think the Wizards have a chance of making the playoffs with no Bradley Beal?
I believe it's going to be hard. But, I see the Nets team that they have out there. And, I mean, with the Nets team, the Wizards may have a chance of sliding into the playoffs. However, it'll be tough, I believe, without Bradley Beal, without Davis Bertans. If Thomas Bryant doesn't make it down, it's going to be tough for them to get far if they are able to slide in. But I think there's a possibility they could slide in, because the Nets really have nobody right now.
Yeah. And that'll segue to the WNBA. Now, the WNBA is setting up to do something similar that the NBA is doing. They will be going to the IMG Academy League. They're going to set up a campus there, and they're going to do the same thing that the NBA is doing, keeping their players there, etc. I know you've talked to a few ladies over there with the Mystics. What was your sense on how they felt about it, and are there some people that are opting out of going?
Yeah, so Natasha Cloud with the Wizards, she opted out because of the social justice. And if you know Natasha, this is something she's always done, is stand up for social issues. And last year, before she talked to the media, she did a moment of silence every single time, because right up the street from the arena, she found out that school had been shot through like 5 times already, like in a short period of time. So to bring attention to that, she was very vocal, number one, but then she held moment of silences before talking to the media. I think she didn't even want to talk to the media, but not because she didn't want to, but because that was going to be her way of continuing to bring awareness to it. But she found another way. So anyway, Natasha's sitting out, which isn't surprising. Also, Elena Deladon, I'm not saying she's sitting out, but she's under her and Tina Charles, which is their new acquisition. They're both under the medical evaluation, and Elena has had a bout with Lyme disease. So they're basically trying to see if it's even safe for her to go because, COVID, if you have an underlying condition, you're even more vulnerable. I don't know what Tina Charles' situation is. I haven't heard much about that. However, in talking to Coach Tebow, he said if they both don't go down there, they're going to be against the salary cap and they can't replace them. So
wow, that's tough.
There's a hardship clause, I believe, but based on where the Mystics are with their cap space, that doesn't apply to them.
Now that makes it tough on coaching. They're trying to defend the championship, and don't get me wrong, this COVID is just as important and more important than a championship. But when you lose two top players like that, and you have no way of replacing those players, that puts you at an immediate disadvantage when everybody else is coming in fully loaded.
Yeah, because Tina Charles, they just signed her, and I wish I had it, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but they traded some draft picks for Tina and one other big incentive. So they gave up a lot, honestly, for Tina Charles. So if she doesn't play this year, it's kind of like, where does that leave you when it comes to drafting new players? But yeah, they're missing quite a few pieces, and that's been a lot of the conversation when talking to the Mystics this week down in their bubble.
Now, you think that they can pull it off the same way the NBA is pulling it off? I mean, it seems like overall the WNBA has done an excellent job of handling, all of this. They run a well-oiled machine. If people don't pay attention, you wouldn't know. But I do. I have a soft spot in my heart for that because my mom was a basketball player. So I value women's basketball. So I wonder, though, you think they can be able to kind of have that confines to where they can kind of control the narrative and control the space and keep those cases down?
So I think the biggest difference between the NBA and WNBA bubble is, from what I can tell, it looks like there's multiple players in a house. So with the Mystics, they look to be in a house from what I've seen on social media. And it's not everybody in one house, I don't believe, but a couple of them are in a house together. So to me, that seems like there could be a little bit more room for someone to catch COVID, whereas on the NBA side, they're all in individual rooms. So to me, that seems to be the biggest difference that I can tell. As far as how things are run, the NBA and the WNBA are both on the back end. When you get to a certain point, they are run by the NBA. So a lot of the same protocols are going to be in place. So I see it from that point, but the accommodation situation is just a little different between the NBA and WNBA, and that's where I see there potentially being a little bit more of a risk.
Yeah, it's all going to be interesting how they go about it, and we just have to sit back and wait and see.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting. The NBA is kind of the prototype for how this is going to work for other leagues. I don't know how the NFL can pull it off, though, because there's just so many more players and staff, and you just don't have a situation where you can go into a bubble. So that'll be interesting.
It will be. And after the break, we'll get into some NHRA championship drag racing. Yes, it came back, and it is back, and it was exciting, and we'll talk about it after the break. That's right, I said it. The NHRA, it came back. And it came back with some faces you hadn't seen in a while. Schumacher? Tony Schumacher in a global car? Absolutely. Corey McClenathan, he was back out there too? Yep, sure was. It was a nostalgic kind of day. I mean, I almost felt like I was back into the 80s, 90s, where you had all these one car teams and you had individuals just vying for spots. It wasn't these multiple teams, all these big time players with all these 4 cars, 3 cars. Nope. Just the little guy coming out every weekend, working hard during the week, come out on the weekend, run a little nitro, run a little pro stock bike. It was fun to watch. Guys like Doug Foley and Top Fuel, very, very interesting stuff. You know, the car was very consistent, and although he lost in the first round, that team has nothing to hang their head about. You can clearly see they have that car under control. They have a solid crew chief over there, and I think they're going to be some head rollers, some guys that come up and they can sneak up and take them. Um, Look, Karita, we know we're in COVID. It's an outside event. If you've
Mhm.
never been to an NHRA event, so I'll bring you up to speed. And it's outside, drag strip, and the protocols were, at least appeared to be, working well. I have a few people that I follow, a few PR people that I follow, and things seem to have gone smoothly. They only had a selected bit of fans, which were only ticket holders for Indy, and I believe it's NHRA members. So it was a small group, social distance as their group. Masks were mandatory. All drivers, all patrons had to wear them at all times when they were outside, except for when they were in their trailer. So I thought the NHRA, it was hand sanitizer everywhere, hand washing stations everywhere. They took your temperature as you come in. People were taking temperatures inside the car of these individuals coming into park, and they were also taking their temperature from what I could see as they were coming into the gate.
That's
So
great.
I thought that their protocols were above and beyond, and this is one of two that will be in Indy.
Okay.
So it's 11,000 horsepower for the big boys in Top Fuel and Funny Car. It's amazing to see, and maybe one day after this COVID, we'll do a whole media thing where you can come with me and get to feel the thunder.
I know. I need to check it out. I mean, were there any surprises that happened, or did it kind of go how you thought it would?
No, there were absolute big time surprises. I think right out the gate, everybody knows Team Force. John Force was not there. He's a 17-time champ. I think for me, all I know is John Force.
Mm.
Um, but if anybody knows John Force, racing is their life. That's what they do. A lot of teams have um, contractor businesses, or they work for someone and they have a sponsor and they have enough money to come out and run. But most people have an everyday job, whether it's working in a machine shop or whatever. But for them, it's racing and only racing. So it has to be economically sound for them. There's no reason or hasn't been any statement from them, so I won't speculate on that. I've heard a lot of things, but I won't speculate on that. But I'm sure John and the team will speak soon on that. But I would say that being that it is your life, you have to be very strategic in whether you're going to come out and run, being that COVID is still out here, and we know that there's a lot of states that are dealing with a lot of cases. Will that affect their ability to be able to run at these tracks in those states? It could, because the NHRA is looking to have fans there. I don't believe that they're looking to open up this operation without fans. So that may be an issue. If they don't allow them to open the track, that would be an issue. So every bit of money is coming out of their pocket, whether they have sponsorships or not, because they have to pay people, they have to pay staff. So that was a surprise. Then you had the Tony Schumacher coming back. He had been, he was not retired. Didn't have a sponsorship after the Army deal. He was the Army guy. I believe the guy kind of got pigeonholed because he'd always been known as the Army guy for so long. And then people and sponsors, it's about marketing when it comes to PR.
Hmm.
And then those people look at him and they kind of pigeonholed him as he was a military driver. He represented the Army, but he didn't work for the Army. So
Huh.
now got global, and he's got that opportunity to show that he's not just a soldier representative. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it'll be important for him. I thought, Tony is Tony. Talks well, always good, really good guy, really good interview. Did an excellent job. But I thought just the many one car teams that were out there was the most thing that was very interesting outside of the John Force stuff. The one car teams out there, the Pedregon team, they didn't go as far as they wanted to, but um, they looked really stout. And the thing of it is, and normally in drag racing, there's 4 qualifying sessions. Well,
Hmm.
they only have 2 now,
Hmm.
and that cuts down the amount of data that you can get on a car. And you have to come out swinging correctly the first time out. There can't be any hiccups because you put yourself up against the wall. There's only 16 cars that make it. So if there's 20 or 17 cars on the property, you could, if you make a mistake in the first session, you could really set yourself back for the second.
Yeah, I was reading some of DJ's articles and I saw you make that point quite a bit that there's really no room for mistakes based on how this is set up now.
Yes, I mean it's tough, and it's already tough.
Mm.
But it's even tougher now because there's no reset, no countdown reset. So it's the old school way. You run what you brung every day. The points you get at the end of the day are the points that you get. So you need to get as many as you can. If you slip up anywhere, and somebody goes on a run, it could be over for you. Because in the past, the reason why they got the countdown the way they did is because guys like John Force and other big time racers back in the day would run away with the points. The championship would be sealed up with 3 races to go, so it's no excitement. So I understood the reset, but yeah, with only 2 qualifying sessions and having to go out and you have to go out and race on race day, it puts everybody in a pressure cooker. But it's great for the fans.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I tell DJ he is the NHRA guru, but what's very interesting is it sounds like, all of these leagues are having to make huge adjustments to modify things to deal with COVID. So,
Right.
like, everybody's adjustment is different, but they're all pretty huge adjustments that we're seeing.
Right. And see,
Make
there's a difference too, and that's funny you make that talk about the adjustment because the biggest adjustment, and a lot of drivers talked about it. Ron Capps talked about it. You hear people like Cruz Pedregon talk about it. Steve Torrance talked about it. The fans, they talked about. As a matter of fact, I was watching a Facebook Live today, and Eddie Krawick was talking about how you could hear people walking up and down the stands because it was just quiet. They're having to pre-sign these hero cards and sit them out there, and they're already pre-signed. No interaction with the fans. Unlike NASCAR, yes, they do have fans in the pits, but you have to pay for that ticket. NHRA, every ticket is a pit pass, so the fans are always there. And to not have that interaction for those drivers, especially guys like Ron Capps who've been in this thing for a long time, um, that's a huge change. That's a huge change. Those things are things that stand out to me because it is. It's almost like being at a carnival almost, and a drag race is going on. Because that's how much noise it is.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, if the NHRA has some fans and it was still a huge adjustment, imagine like the WNBA and the NBA, there will be no fans.
Right.
So that'll be something to really like watch too, and how the players feel about that because like at least with the NHRA, at least with NASCAR, there were some fans. But if the NHRA drivers were saying like it was even weird, like the way it was with some fans, yeah, that no fan situation will be quite different.
It will. It definitely will. And the NHRA will continue next week in Indy again. Um, it will be interesting. I think it will be an even better race because this will be the second time that they've run an event at Indy. But they had testing before this E3 Sparks Plugs Indy Nationals this weekend, so they will have had some good time on this track. Um, and hopefully the weather is better than it was this past week, and it was super hot. And that changes horsepower, that changes how you prepare that engine and the clutch setup to make the proper runs, and to be able to field a winning car. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes up this week. And then after that, they will be open to the public in Denver. So we will see how that goes. Right now, Denver is sketchy, and I'll just leave it at that. And to close our show, we will talk about the announcement that should have been made the first time by the Washington football team, the Washington whatchamacallits.
I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to remember to call them just Washington or the Washington football team, because it's going to be an adjustment, not in a bad way, but moving away from the nickname, yes, it will definitely be an adjustment. So forgive me if it slips a couple times, but I'm going to do my best to call them Washington. But yeah, things are interesting. And if we've learned anything from this Washington name change, especially with the owner, Dan Snyder, being so adamant about never changing the names, and you can put that in caps, is what he said, we have learned that money talks. And FedEx put the pressure on the Redskins, followed by Nike taking their merchandise off the shelves. And after that, Amazon, Walmart, and Target all followed. So it left the Washington football team with no choice but to make a change. And you said what they should have said the first time. When they said they were doing a thorough review of the name, I mean, at the end of the day, you knew at that point in time, based on the pressure you had then, that you were going to more than likely change the name. So, I mean, I think that it could have just been said then, but they decided to say it today for whatever reason. One thing that comes to mind is, and I don't know if this is true, but a theory that I have is, it has come out that they're having trademarking issues because somebody trademarked all the possible names that the Redskins might choose. So part of me is wondering if they said they were going to do a thorough review with the plans of releasing a name soon after, but now they run into this hiccup. So I'm wondering if they decided they needed to just go ahead and say that they were changing the name because of all the pressure that they're still getting. I don't know, but that's a theory that I have.
That's very interesting you say that because, see, my first thought on this today when I saw this statement was the same way I felt about the NASCAR statement. If you don't have all the information, then just shut up. We don't even know anyway. You've been silent all this long, so don't come out and release a statement and then don't have a logo, don't have a name, nothing. And if you're going through legal things and you're having trouble, either say that that's what's going on and why it's the delay, or don't say anything at all, because you just leave people in suspense for nothing, and you create this banter and all this talk on all these sports shows for nothing, and it's a whole bunch of speculation. Kill the speculation by just simply releasing a statement when you have something to say. Because I felt like they said nothing. It's like, again, tell us something we don't know.
They definitely said nothing. The only thing, like I said, in addition to the trademark issues, the only thing that I can also think of with that is they may have thought by that saying we're going to thoroughly review the name was enough until they had something. But if you think about it, it was at that point, it was just really FedEx and Nike. And I feel like there may have been one more that I'm not remembering. But there were just like those two for the most part. But since then, like I said, you've had Amazon, Walmart, Target, and who knows who else would be pulling their merchandise. So it may have gotten to a point where it was like, okay, we need to at least say that we are going to do this, because I think that they may have thought that that was going to be enough by just saying we'll review the name. But as I just said, we saw that that wasn't enough. Like, these different brands kept putting the pressure on them. So that could also be the case, is that things didn't go quite as what they thought it would be. So, I mean, those are the only things I could think of was why they would actually say, hey, we're changing the name. And that's it. There's definitely some things going on, I think, in the background.
Yeah, as they put two individuals that I felt that should have been on the trash heap, I felt that those guys were Bruce Allen guys, and maybe that's where all your leaking is coming from, because they have flapping gums. So now that those guys, I know people have their thing and think this is really bad, but I mean, honestly, they should have been gone a long time ago. I mean, these guys are right along with the other snake that you got out of there after you cut the grass. So if you're going to cut the grass and get the snakes out, get them all out. And they deserve to go. They were here too long.
I heard that there's some additional news that should be coming out of Redskins Park. I say I heard as in other reporters are saying that there's other information and it's not all good. So I don't know if it has to do with those guys. I'm assuming probably, but to your point, maybe they were leaks. There's some additional information that we're still waiting on that doesn't have to do with the name, is my understanding. So that'll definitely be interesting. But like you said, you just have to clean house. And maybe they didn't see anything wrong with those two guys. And maybe they now realize, now that Rivera's been there some time, that they're not going to fall in line. Right. He was like, hey, it's time to go. So
I get that. There's some evaluation that has to be done. And I understand. But, man, you know, like I said, when you cut the grass and you get rid of the snakes, you got to get them all out of there. You can't leave some hanging around hoping that they, you know, going to change, because, you know, at the end of the day, a snake is a snake. And as much as he may like you and act like he likes you, he still bites in the end because he's a snake.
Well, it sounds like they made some moves very quickly, brought in the gentleman from Carolina. His name escapes me right now, but they brought him in quick, fast, and in a hurry. So sounds like they were ready for that transition and had no problem doing it.
Absolutely. And I'm very interested to see how all this goes in the future. They got a lot of work to do before the end of the season, and if they're running into trademark issues, man, it's going to be a problem. But you know what? I don't even have a problem with them just saying, you know what, we'll work on it, and for now, we're just Washington.
Right. They should have, I would agree with that. They should have had like something interim, like just call us the Washington football team, which is what everybody's doing anyway. And a lot of people pointed out how they sent out their press release on the Redskins letterhead. So, you know, this isn't going as smoothly. But you also, I don't think we should expect it to go smoothly, because this was not something that they planned to do. I mean, Ron Rivera said that they had been talking about a name change, but who knows, like, what the timeline was on that. Now their hand has been forced, and so they're essentially scrambling all over the place right now. So I don't think we're going to see this be a pretty process, because it's really just coming together at lightning speed.
It really is. And we'll try to keep up with that lightning speed. That is all for our show, ladies and gentlemen. And it's been a pleasure having you guys with us. Again, you want to get at us? Both of us love talking shop. Carita is awesome. Like I said, she's our Swiss Army knife. Tell us tell them where they can follow you at.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Carita C Parks, and Carita is spelled Carita. You can also check out my PR site if you're interested, parkspr.com, and my work is on Sports Journey and 3-point conversion.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. So, and you do want to follow her PR account. It is very, very informative. And for you ladies out there who are doing your own thing, carrying your own load, have your own business, doing your own thing, you're going to get some great tips from that. So I would encourage it. You can follow me at NotBland21, NotBland21 on everything. And we will talk to you guys soon. This has been The Breakdown.